Back here on CBS Sports HQ, this week will mark the end of the regular season in college football, and some teams' postseason dreams are at stake as we turn our focus to the latest college football playoff rankings. Which teams from this week's rankings were overrated or underrated, according to our own Chip Patterson and Bud Elliot, who join us live here on CBS Sports HQ. Gentlemen, great to see you. Let's start with the top 4 seeds. They remain the same this week after every team won this past weekend. One of those seeds, though, was third-ranked Texas, a team that both of you guys, spoiler alert here, have as overrated. Chip, tell me why.
Okay, for me, it's about the offensive inconsistency. When you look back at some of these performances, all the way back to the loss against Georgia, even including the Kentucky game, especially the Vanderbilt game, you've got offensive performances that have fallen short of expectations. 4 out of the last 5 SEC games, the only outlier being the way that this offense looked against the Gators. And some of that is going to be because of Quinn Ewers' health. Sure, I understand that he's been a little bit banged up, and it's hard to get him fully healthy and also be able to get the offense rolling. But when we are splitting hairs between these one-loss teams, I want to see a well-rounded team. And when the only game that you've been in where your offense looks like it's clicking is against a Florida Gators team that at that point looked like it was kind of laying down in the competition, I just am going to find it tough to be able to slot you ahead of some other teams. So I've got Texas slightly overrated. I've got them at 4.
Chip, I agree with you there. Honestly, like from a power rating standpoint, Texas very might be the best team in the country. It is possible that they could still win the whole damn thing. But from a resume perspective, it's really not there. They got Mississippi State when State had the backup quarterback. They got Florida when Florida was on QB number 3, and as you mentioned, we're pretty much running on fumes. Georgia worked them in Austin. Were it not for kind of a crazy reverse call, that game is probably not close at all at the end. I mean, what are their best wins? At Vanderbilt, by a hair, and then at Michigan when Michigan was an absolute mess. Talent-wise, it's logically inconsistent to have Texas, too low, and I struggle to call them overrated. But from a resume perspective, I don't really see how their resume stacks up with a couple of the teams below them.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that as well. But Texas, well, we know in that third spot for a third straight week now. Behind the Longhorns at 4 is Penn State. Nittany Lions, you guys, remain atop of the selection committee's rankings as we enter the final week of the regular season here. But is that really where they belong, Bud? Is Penn State's ranking overrated or underrated in your opinion?
I think it's a little bit overrated, but we also have to acknowledge that this year ain't normal, okay? There's like probably 10 or 12, maybe even 15 teams over the last 5 years that would power rate as better than any team playing college football in 2024. And that's probably because the talent is so spread out. So we might need to just kind of readjust our expectations a little bit about what a true elite team looks like in this sport, both from like a ceiling perspective and from a week-to-week consistency perspective, which I will give Penn State credit for. They have shown up and played at least decent every week. They really don't have any stinker games this year. Maybe Bowling Green, but that was kind of a weird one. Like they've gone out, they've handled business. Do I think they can really win a national title? I don't know, but if you take most of the teams from this year and you throw them in prior tournaments, they're not winning the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm going to go overrated as well. They are a team that I like a lot, but it's kind of what Bud is hinting at. I think they've got a lower ceiling than a lot of the other top teams. But for me, when I'm splitting hairs among these one-loss teams, it is going to be about the resume, and it is going to be about the lack of quality wins. If you want to go by record, I guess the best win is Illinois. If you want to go by a power ratings, I guess the best win is against USC. Those results for 21-7 against the Fighting Illini and 33-30 in overtime. They get the 1-point squeaker in Minneapolis against Minnesota last time out when we saw them. And so I know that Penn State is very good. I love the pieces. And like Bud said, they're not going up and down, like a Texas. They're not going up and down like a Georgia. They have been pretty much themselves every week. But as we're trying to make those very difficult decisions, which might end up impacting seeding, which might end up impacting home field advantages or where you are in the bracket, you need to pull out that microscope and you need to look at the nitty-gritty details. And unfortunately for Penn State, the resume just ain't there. So I do think Penn State ever so slightly overrated at this moment.
That's a good point, Chip, and what we need to start weighing. I do want to get to a team, you guys, that moved up in this week's rankings. That was Notre Dame. They claimed that 5th spot. They claimed that position after, their win, of course, over Army, but also Indiana's loss to Ohio State. Hoosiers, as we know, previously held that spot. We have a split here, though. Chip, you believe Notre Dame is underrated, while Bud, you believe the Irish are overrated. Chip, I'll start with you. What are you seeing that maybe the committee is not?
Them kicking tail, them being merciless, them being downright mean. You ain't got like no 4-leaf clovers for anybody else because they've snatched them all up and they've just buried them down where you're never going to get them. Look, I've got Notre Dame as my number 3 team in the country on my ballot for the CBS Sports 134 that was turned in going into this week 14. I think that Notre Dame is just simply a different football team since the one that lost to Northern Illinois earlier this year. And I do understand that from a resume perspective, it is a little bit of a contradiction. The fact that you're reaching all the way back to week 1, the Texas A&M victory in College Station, but yet trying to forgive week 2. But I just think the way that they have handled their business, the way that that offense has gotten better and better each and every single week, there's something to me about those consecutive wins by 18 points or more that are just so impressive, that do outweigh some of the punishment that should be awarded. I've got Notre Dame as the highest ranked 1-loss team other than Ohio State. And I think a lot of that has to do with the eye test and what I'm seeing them do to teams on the field.
Chip, I think they're a little bit overrated from like the can they win the national title perspective. I have a really hard time divorcing myself from the preseason prior. So, hey, they were relying on Charles Jagasaw to come in and be their left tackle, and they lose him in the preseason. And so, I know Knapp has played well, and they've had some guys step up, and they recruit well. So maybe I should just get away from those preconceived notions. But when I look at this Notre Dame team, they have been kicking tail. Riley Leonard is so much more comfortable. He's playing well at the quarterback position, probably the best quarterback play they've had in South Bend in a long time. But the tail they've been kicking is not all that impressive. USC is the best team they've played in a couple months, I think, depending on what you think of Louisville. So we'll watch them today on CBS.
Great little promo there. Thanks for doing my job, Bud. I appreciate it. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here live on CBS Sports HQ. Get more college football talk from Bud, Chip, the entire crew on the Cover 3 podcast. Scan that QR code on your screen and watch and listen wherever you get your podcasts.